Hi, friends, and welcome back to Fill Your Cup with Wild Geese Bookshop. I'm Kara.
And I'm Emily.
And today we have a guest with us. We have Kate.
It's Hergott. It's a weird one. It's okay. I've gotten ergo. I've gotten ergot. So it's totally fine.
Okay.
It's my husband's last name anyway.
Yeah.
So.
We're with Kate Hergott.
Yeah.
And who is the voice and the person behind Bookwild.
Yes.
And would you mind just telling us a little bit about your background? Like, how did you get where you are now?
Yeah. So I was always a reader. There was always that. And then my husband and I, for work, we help people make content, like kind of a wide variety of content. And so it got to a point, I think in like 2020 or 2019, podcasts were becoming a big enough deal that even our real estate clients were like, oh, this is an easy way for me to sit down once or twice a week and then get a bunch of content from it. Since we could use teasers basically. So then we got all of this podcast equipment and we're doing it with our clients. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden I was like, wait a second. I was like, I have all this equipment. I've always said it would be so cool to get to talk to authors who are the people actually writing these books. And so it was the December before lockdown. So 2019?
Yeah.
Yeah. Basically a little bit before that, I reached out to like 6 authors of books I had recently read. I had no clue, like, if people were going to say yes. I did not know like anything about, reaching out and asking an author to be on a podcast. And 5 of the 6 people said, yes, let's do it. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I'm starting a podcast really soon. And so I think I kind of got lucky too. I mean, authors still do virtual podcasts, but I think because then it was going into the pandemic where they couldn't do book events, I was able to I almost had one come out every single week that year. So I went from being nervous, can I say that it's a weekly podcast? Because I just didn't know. And then I actually was able to. And so that was a lot of fun. And then it kind of, actually, Ashley Winstead was my first interview for In My Dreams I Hold a Knife. Mm-hmm. And a Bookstagrammer started following me because he said he loves that episode so much. And it turned out his name was Gare Billings, and he is Gare Indeed Reads on Instagram for anyone who may have seen him. He does castings for books. He fully does builds it out with actor headshots. And he was like, I love this, and I love Ashley Winstead so much. And so then we were kind of becoming friends on Instagram. And then I was like, this was also the first time, because in person I was not meeting people who read as much as I did. Mm-hmm. And at the time I was pretty exclusively reading thrillers. So I was not just running into that person. I just wasn't. Mm-hmm. And so it was this magical experience of oh my gosh, this person has the same shared background. So we talked about so many different books, because we kind of thought should we try a podcast? But then we did a Zoom, because we'd never talked outside of text, just to talk about the idea of it. And it was the first time that I was this person has all of this shared knowledge of all the good thrillers that have been out in the last at the time 5 years. Mm-hmm. So it was such a unique experience. And I was like, well, that's really fun. I think I like talking to readers too. So then that is where it evolved into basically now I have author episodes on Tuesdays, and then readers, or sometimes you hear it in podcast terminology, buddy episodes, mm-hmm. where that's the fun of it, is you're listening to some friends talk about something specific. So that was how that kind of came about, the two a week schedule. Mm-hmm. And then he went through some health issues. And so he wasn't able to do it a bunch in, I think, 2024. And so then I was like, well, I can have anyone on. It doesn't just have to be Gare. And I had made more friends in that time. So now it's a rotating co-host, Friday's a rotating co-host episode kind of thing. So, and I love it. Talking to both, talking to the authors and talking to the readers.
That's so fun. Yeah. That's so cool.
Yeah, and Bookwild has become more than just like the podcast. It's
Yes.
become its like own brand
Yes.
as like Bookwild Collective. Can you tell us like how you came up with that name? Because it's like an
Yes.
iconic name.
Yes. So it's a fun story. Speaking of my husband's name versus my maiden name is Buckner. And I am a little bit intense. I can be a little bit rough around the edges about some stuff, or like, I'm trying to think of all the ways to describe it, but it led to my now husband, when we were dating, he would call me Buckwild because my last name was Buckner. And it's not even like wild in like a crazy girl partying way, just like in a like dog with a bone, like that kind of a thing. So he'd be like, yeah, you're going buck wild about this again too. So then he would just call me Buckwild. He would like, and he still does, like he'll be walking around and be like, Buckwild, can you help me with this? And I'm like, yes. So then when I went to make the podcast, at first I called it, I forgot that part, I called it Between the Lines, was what I called my author interviewing podcast. And then it was called Killing the Tea when it was just Gare and I, because we loved thrillers so much and sometimes gossip and like reality TV, but we ended up not talking about that as much. But back when I started Between the Lines, like when I had zero podcasts, I was like, it would be very cool to be, you know how like BuzzFeed has like BuzzFeed Kids, BuzzFeed Mom, they have like BuzzFeed Sports that and especially at that time it was a little bit more common to like have that umbrella that had multiple either YouTube channels or podcasts under it. And I was like, okay, so if I was thinking of it that way, because I did want to think about it as a platform, what should I call like the platform? And so then I was like, oh, I could say Bookwild because I'm so used to being called Buckwild already. So that was where I came up with that name. And so then when the Tuesday and Friday episodes were like, they were so it was like Between the Lines and Killing the Tea were under the Bookwild umbrella. Then when he went through his health issues, I was like, let's just merge it into one. I already have that. And then some of my author friends, Greg Wands and Liz Keenan, they reached out because they wanted to start a podcast kind of as a way to like, also they co-write together and they don't love doing press, and they were like, maybe a podcast is a good way to kind of just like be in front of readers and authors. So they reached out to me and they were like, would you produce it? So then that kind of came under the Bookwild Collective umbrella. And then there's one called Slaying the Craft with one of my friends, Sabrina Thatcher, that I produce as well. So now there's like, it was the goal. Like it's kind of cool that even before I'd even had one of my own episodes, I was like, yeah, maybe it could become an umbrella. And then the other aspect of it is that we have been selling content to authors. So for like Ashley Winstead's This Book Will Bury Me, we did like reading mean reviews with her. We did like a whole package with her. And then same thing actually with Lane Fargo, did it at Wild Geese when she came here, did some extra content for the favorites. So now it's like a podcast company, but also helps authors with social media content.
Was that always a goal for you, or did it just kind of stumble into that like kind of realm for you?
Yeah, so that part's kind of fun too as an answer, because I started listening to she's a co-host now, which is kind of crazy. But Mackenzie Green is someone who now is the head of social for Audible, not to name drop or anything, but she was on someone else's podcast, but she talked about books a lot. And I was like, I think this girl loves books. And so I started listening to her, and she has a friend named Jessie Jollis, and they did for like a year on like a Patreon, they did Manifestation Monday. And so they would talk about like, it felt like a very when you hear about manifestation, sometimes there's like people who think like, well, I said this would happen, so it should happen. And like that part doesn't always work for me. They very much came from like manifestation from the perspective of like, think about who you want to be, think about what you want to be doing, and like almost like imagine yourself doing that. And then also like, what do you need to do next to like become that person that you're wanting to become, essentially. And so they were talking about like being fulfilled with work even, and like going after things that you wanted. So around that time, which I think was probably the beginning of 2024, I was hearing them say that. And I was like, what if Bookwild could be profitable even with like working with authors as well? Because there's always the like, if you get really, really popular, your YouTube can make money, but that takes so long. And I was like, maybe I should just act like we make content for all these other people that we know. And so then I was like, let's start offering services to authors. And so coincidentally, I loved Mad Woman by Chelsea Beaker in 2024. I really loved it. I had her on the podcast. And then I found out she was coming to Chicago. And I was like, do you care if we just kind of like practice getting content of like an author event? And she was like, oh yeah, like I'll let them know. And so we drove to Chicago. That was in like September, just so like I could build out a website that had content on it. And so then from there, we were just I just talk about it enough that then like when Ashley needed to do a tour, she reached out. Or just kind of wanted some content, she reached out. And then Lane, when she found out, she was like, you're in Indiana, right? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, well, I'm coming to Wild Geese. Could you do something with me like you did with Ashley? And I was like, oh yeah. So that's kind of how it happened. It was kind of like hearing someone else talk about like, tell the world what you want, and like believe that you can have what you want, and just start acting like the person that you do want to be. And that's actually kind of where I was like, yeah, I could monetize this part of it too.
So as like a collective, what does the Bookwild Collective offer in total?
Yeah, for like the podcasts that are there, they're being produced by me essentially. So they only have to record, and then I'm sending them their assets just for everything. And then with like what we offer for authors is like content packages specific to a book launch, or we also help people with like templates. So like even if it's not going to be a thing where we could like fly to where they are, like helping them with like posts that they can at least like it's almost there, but then maybe they can go in and tweak on Canva. So that section of it all is like, we can also just help with social media strategy in general too.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Social media is so hard.
It's just, there's so much extra steps.
It is. I don't think people realize how hard like the podcasting and the social media aspect of things are, even as like doing the events, Kara and I. Right. It's a lot of work that I wasn't anticipating when I signed up to do the job. So I can't imagine putting out 2 episodes and producing other podcasts and producing other people's content. Like you're like a superwoman. I cannot fathom.
You have a lot more people you have to manage.
We have one bi-weekly podcast. I'm in the trenches.
You guys are, I mean, like events though, like that, there's so many variables that can go wrong. So I'm assuming that's a big part of your time too.
Yeah. We've been very lucky though that we've got to work with you and your husband with the events. Covering the Book Thief by Marcus Zusak event for us. You're going to do Christina Lauren for the summer camp for grown-ups. And then you'll be at Geneva Rose as well.
And then you'll be the conversation partner for our event with Ruta Cepetis for A Fortune of Sand.
I just started listening to it. It's just very good.
That's so good. I'm very excited for that one.
I am too.
Kind of going into that a little bit more, like getting into the bookish space is like daunting, and especially like from like 2020 to now, I feel like it's been very much like growing. And there's a lot of people trying to get into the space. How did you know that you wanted to like make the leap and like become a creator like in that space that focuses on books and like building that community?
So when I first started, I even did do it under my personal account that doesn't even exist anymore, because I was like, let's just do it. Let me just get going. And then it was like, once I started realizing like, oh, I can actually interview authors and do this every week. Once I finally realized like that it was sustainable and that I could do it, I was like, I think it's time to get a Bookstagram account. So I think I created like I'm Bookwild in maybe 2023. I kept it on my personal for a while. And then it does help. Like what I was starting to notice is like, I think if someone goes to your profile and it very much seems about books, I think it's easier for people to say like, yes, this is something I want to follow. And I don't even think like it's not, I wasn't even posting tons on my personal other than books, but I think it just helps is what I was starting to notice. And it just like having something bookish in the username and then like in your bio and all of that. So, but then that did mean starting from zero basically again. And something that I've talked about, and this is not shade to any of the Bookstagrammers who did this, but for Bookstagrammers who started before video was there, it was so much easier to build up the audience. And I think to your point, Bookstagram itself has expanded so much over time. So that's like the other thing that's happened. But like if you were able to just do it by just posting photos, like and you could build your audience then, like that's where I still to this day feel like some people have a huge leg up on me. But I was like, okay, I do want to do this though, and I do want to have it like specifically be a bookish account. And so that was just basically what I did. And it's like you kind of have to always be like paying attention to the algorithm in a sense of even like trying other things, because for a while like reels were huge. So it was like if you were posting reels, those were doing well kind of shortly after the feature itself came out. They did well for a while, and then I started to notice it was dropping off quite a bit. So then I kind of switched to these like carousel posts because you can fit so much more information. And at least in what I was reading, they're like, people feel like it's less of a commitment than like turning the volume on and actually listening to something. And for a shorter attention span, they can read like one sentence a slide. And those were doing better. And then now I've noticed they've been dipping again. So like this is a choice. Like literally 2 weeks ago, I was like, okay, I think I need to try teasers again. Or reels, and then those started doing well. So it's like you kind of have to just like, and I'm sure you guys are having to pay attention too, like you have to keep trial and error, because it'll just switch on you and you're like, this isn't doing as well as it was anymore. And I still want to use carousels. I was actually just talking about this last night. So I think I will do both. Like I'll maybe do like a weekly recap and then put both of the episodes in it. But like now I'm back to like, okay, I think I need to do reels again. So you just have to pay attention.
Yeah. And the trends move so fast.
Yes.
So if you have like advice for anyone who's like looking at wanting to start their own Bookstagram, or just people who are just wanting to get into social media in general, how do you stay on top of asking for a friend? How do you stay on top of like all the changing like trends or like changing algorithms? And it's just so tough because it changes so fast.
It is, and every platform is very different is the other thing. Like I'll mostly talk about Instagram, but I would go through phases where like some teasers posted on TikTok would do so well on TikTok, but they still weren't doing great on Instagram. And then so there's that whole part of it. The one thing I'm not going to be perfect at giving advice on, but it was advice I was giving myself last night when I was thinking about what I should keep doing moving forward. I don't do enough is the wrong word. You don't have to like say that about yourself, but I don't do as much of the like literal trends. So like the things where it's like the five horrors that's kind of happening right now, where it's like typically like a video of someone, even if they're just like sitting, but it's like the 5 bookish horrors, and it's like a sticker on the front. You lost your bookmark, like all of those. I haven't focused on that as much because I had been focused on like mostly podcast content. So literally was talking to Tyler about this like at 8:00 last night when I finished one of my teasers, where I was like, I do want to kind of pay more attention to those trends. So I would also tell other people that is the stuff that it's like, it's so zeitgeisty since it's like everyone's doing it. And I do some of them every now and then, but I'm not the best at focusing on those just because of podcasting. But a side note is I also got to a point where I was like, I want to talk to this author and their book comes out on the same day. So I'll just do that. And it's fun, but like it does mean I'm not doing some of the other content that could make me grow more. So I'm even like giving myself that advice right now. The other thing is like templates, whether Canva has their own templates. I also like recommend, even if you like see one on Canva and you like it, you can still tweak it so much after the fact. So it's kind of like, I always even approach, like, if I'm going to use a Canva template for something, I'm like, okay, I like the like structure or the bones of this, and then you can kind of bring in your own like branding, your colors. I use a lot of just like what does look like white paper graphics, so you could definitely start there. But having templates is going to make it so much easier because it's like I know what I'm going to do with every single podcast episode because I have the like YouTube thumbnail template, I have the podcast thumbnail template, I have a carousel template, and then now that I'm really getting back into reels now, I have a reel overlay template for each one. So I'm not having to come up with the design every single week. I'm just having to like, okay, what were those standout moments that I want to pull from? The other thing is like when you're scrolling, especially because this is what I'm starting to do, and you start to see trends, like save it so that then like when you're like, what should I do? There's a chance that you save something and you're like, oh, I could do my own take on that. And I'll do that with memes. I was having a lot of fun doing like pop culture memes, especially kind of like into 24, beginning of 2025. I feel like there's not as much funny news or like as much light news. I'm not even going to get into why. Everyone can imagine their own reasons, but that I really started to notice in 2025. I was like, or especially in 2026, I'm like, there's not as much to meme from, because some of the news is just, I don't want to make light of it or like whatever. But memes are another thing where it's like, if you're starting to see a meme everywhere, like I'm starting to see like backrooms memes, and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, movies are good for this too. So I kind of have been saving like different backrooms ones. So then when you like sit down to go, like think about content, then you might have some saved. And if you have templates, even like I have like 2 different book review templates, so it's like I have one for audiobooks and one for a regular book. Then it's like once you're done, kind of all you have to do is drop what you either typed into NetGalley or Goodreads. So all of those help a lot.
Very smart
So you said you produce a couple of other podcasts, just out of curiosity. Do you do any of like the content do you help them with content as well? Or so what is that like balancing your own brand and then like the like collaborations, like whether that's like when you're making content for authors or making content for these other things that you're producing?
So I will say it's a similar thing. So I have templates for most of them as well. And actually both of the other podcasts I mentioned, they just went on a hiatus for a few months. So if you go looking for it and you're like, I don't see any new episodes here, they're kind of people who go more with like seasons and then are kind of like done. But it's like one thing I enjoy is, so like Imposter Hour is Greg and Liz Wan's. And part of the reason they did that is their book that was about to come out was Trust Issues. And they did some like heavy research into imposters and scammers and like people who can convince other people, like con artists kind of. But they both struggle with imposter syndrome a lot too, and a lot of other authors do too. So that one, some of what, like how I manage it, it was so interesting to me to listen to these episodes too, since it's so adjacent to like what I'm interested in as well. And they were kind of most of the time they were talking with authors that I hadn't necessarily interviewed too. So sometimes there were like 2 or 3 where I was like, oh, and I don't care if I DM someone and they don't, like an author, and they don't DM back. Like not everyone sees DMs, not everyone has time, all kinds of reasons. So it doesn't bother me. But there were like 2 or 3 where I was like, oh, that I never completely connected with this person, but they know them. So now I get to like hear them talk. And so it ended up being so fun because I'm so interested in it as well. And I work from home. It kind of makes a lot of stuff easier. So it's like, if I need to wake up early, because I also do all the editing for our business clients, since it's fun content that I'm making, like I'll just kind of wake up early and can listen to listen through it and get that stuff done before I dive into other edits. But it definitely helped that like it was content I'm already interested in, because I can't imagine any of our clients are going to listen to this and be angry. My work I'm not interested in. It's just work. So it's one of those things where it's like I just kind of like wake up and fit it in before the other stuff.
You also co-narrated your first audiobook title last year.
I did.
It was The Underdog by
Sagi Schwartz.
Thank you.
I had to ask her too.
And you did it under the stage name Kate Wilder.
Yes.
What made you want to get into the audiobook world? Like, what was that process?
So this is such a fascinating like through line. So I used to only be able to listen to nonfiction for audiobooks, and that meant like maybe like 2 or 3 a year. But it was like if it was someone just like teaching me something and like gaining information, it worked for me. But like every time I tried fiction, because I think there's even with memoirs, you still don't have to create so much of the world in your head. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, it didn't work for me for years. And so then again in 2025, so I think it was May, and one of my co-hosts, her name is Steph, and she's books.in.badgerland on Instagram. She loves audiobooks, and she was starting, and I was like, the other thing that was happening is my work was getting really busy, and I did not have as much time to sit and eyeball read, basically. And so I was kind of having a conversation with her. I was like, I just wish I could get into them. And she was like, I think you need to start with someone who has like an amazing voice. And she was like, so I'll like recommend you some books where like I think they would be good for like beginner audio listeners, and ones that really work. So she recommended really any of S.A. Cosby's, because it's narrated by Adam Lazar White, and like even what she said, she was like, his voice is like butter. It's amazing. You will love it. And I was like, okay. So King of Ashes had just come out. That was his book that came out that year. And I was like, all right, let's try it. And it clicked for me. So it was so fascinating. I went from like not even listening to audiobooks to like, I got obsessed listening to audiobooks. And it made such a big difference since I was having to do so much work. But like some of that is like editing pictures. So like no sound needed. And so now I can like listen while I'm doing that kind of work. And I got so into it. And she just kind of kept telling me like, January Lavoie is a really great narrator as well. And I think she narrated Allegedly by Tiffany Jackson. I think she did. So basically I had a friend who gave me great recommendations, and she was also saying like memoirs read by the author are sometimes great. So like Finding Me by Viola Davis is like seared in my soul because of how good it was. So that means like I've been listening to audiobooks for like 2 or 3 months. And then my friend, I had Sagi on the podcast before for her debut novel that I really enjoyed, and her follow-up, her publisher didn't pick it up. And she was like, I don't want to wait. Like, I do want to get this published. And so she also had 2 friends, or has 2 friends, who have been really successful with independent publishing. So she kind of felt like she would have someone that she could talk to about all the details of like uploading, getting your text in the right place, like all of that. And so we had been like friends since I'd interviewed her, I think like a year and a half prior. But like also like just like the way that you're friends with people on like Bookstagram or email. And I like at the end of July that year, I get this email from her, and she's like, can I call you? Which like insert every joke about a millennial who's like, nobody calls me. What do you like? What happened? I'm like telling Tyler, it's like, I've never even talked to her. Like I've never even texted her, and she's like wanting me to call her. Like what is happening? He's like, probably nothing like bad. I'm like, okay, you're right. So I call her, and she said she auditioned a couple people for the audio of it because she loves audiobooks, and so it was really important to her to also have an audiobook even though she was doing independent publishing. And so she was like, I know you edit, and I just like wanted to say that like I've been listening to your voice for a couple years now, and like the main character is I think 30 in the book. I was 32 when I narrated it. And she was like, and I just think you are like I would just love to have you be the narrator for it. And I was like, oh my gosh, are you serious? I know. I was literally like sitting in bed because like I can't even remember what. Well, sometimes my dogs work better if I literally sit in bed and they can lay right next to me. And that's why. And I was like, what is happening right now? Especially because like only 2 months before I had like gotten into audiobooks and then at least knew enough about kind of like how they quote unquote should sound or like how to do it. And I was like, and she was like, and can you edit it as well? Like, I know you produce stuff like that. And I was like, yeah, I can. And so the book has 2 characters, like this younger assistant, and then there's this older kind of kooky, crazy woman. Mm-hmm. And she was like, I want to narrate her. And then we could do the dual narration basically. And she was like, but just think about it. I just need, but then it was like also one of those things. She's like, but I kind of need to know like by tomorrow evening. Cause like, otherwise I need to reach out to more people. And I was like, okay, well, I do want to do this. I would love for more and more of my work, kind of like I was saying, to be something I'm interested in. Mm-hmm. And I told her, I was like, I literally have never done this though. So like, the next day I said like, yes, however, I've never done it. So like, let me record a chapter and then like, you can tell me. Cause like, she also like went to acting school and I have not done anything like that. And so I'm like, I think I can do it, but I've literally never tried. And so I sent her a chapter and she was like, this is exactly what I wanted. And I was like, okay, let's make an audiobook. So the kind of cool part of the story to me too is like she was literally like outside of LA, like not LA, but that area. So she was like in California and I sent her like a gear list of what she needed to buy. Mm-hmm. And she would go in her like walk-in closet that she like padded a little bit. And so she would record. And then because I have dogs who love to interrupt, I bought like you can get like sound, like kind of like a sound box that dampens and you kind of put the microphone around it. So it's kind of portable. And I have a library in my neighborhood. And so I would drive to the library and rent a room with my little like audio box and record it. And we would go back and forth. Like she would send me hers. I would edit it. She would listen. She'd be like, okay, I just want to do this sentence different. I'd be like, all right, just send it to me. So we went through a few revisions and it was able to come out on August or September, whatever date the print book was already going to come out. We had everything uploaded on time for her pub date. So we just like did an audiobook together from like basically different coasts.
That's so interesting.
Yeah.
And so was it like, it was your first time doing it?
Yes.
Was it like pretty like transferable to like what you do like in your day to day, or like how? What were the challenges?
Different. Yeah, it was very different than anything I've done because podcasts are like conversational for the most part. And then like author interviews are interviews. So I'm like just prepared for those and then kind of just following questions. And this was like needing to keep the speed of my words consistent. And so there was like that to pay attention to. Once I went and recorded the second time, that was where I was like, oh, I was talking a little too fast in the first chapter that I sent her. So there was like a little bit of that. That was all brand new. Like I had never thought about how quickly I'm speaking, like really where you should emphasize stuff, like especially in dialogue and like how to bring like sarcasm into dialogue. So there's way more to pay attention to. That was totally new to me. The hardest part, which you've probably had to deal with me clearing my throat a couple of times here, is that I was doing it in the summer and I have allergies and asthma. And like the pollen, like even today, I was starting it around the same time last year. Like I walked out to my car and it's just a yellow film on the car that wasn't in the garage. So that was the biggest surprise for me. Was then sometimes I wouldn't think my voice was that scratchy and I would record like 2 hours at the library and then I would go to edit it the next day and I'd be like, my voice is scratchy and doesn't sound like the previous chapter. So that was the biggest thing I didn't know to expect. And your voice wears out sooner than you think it will. So like, even if you have like the mental stamina to be like, I just want to sit here and like read all the chapters, your voice is gonna like 3 hours max, maybe. I'm sure maybe like Julia Whelan has some tips and tricks, but I think even she's talked about, like eventually you kind of, it's just because you could mentally do it doesn't mean your voice is ready to do it either. So that was a whole new experience too, was just like jokingly, like I've never been in like a choir or anything, but when people would talk about their voice as an instrument, I understood it in a different sense. That like, okay, I need to like take care of this basically. The part that was similar to what I've done was when I then got to just sit and edit. And I was like, yes, this is what I'm completely familiar with. And that was the most daunting part to her. And it was just what I already knew how to do. So the editing was the easiest part.
What was your favorite part of the process? Was there anything that stuck out to you while you were doing it?
I think my favorite part was realizing like, oh, I can do this. Like, because it's just weird because you're like, you don't know. You're just kind of like sitting there and you're like, okay, I'm about to start speaking, but you're not speaking to anyone. And you're also not like in a solo podcast situation where you're just like, you kind of are monologuing to an audience and saying whatever. So it's like, I'll kind of be sitting there and then you're like, you've kind of got to get into the like chapter 11. Like you have to like get into a different headspace or a different voice. And that's what I was so nervous about for the first like probably 10 to 15% of the project. Every time I sat down, I'd be like, and so I just kind of switched my voice and like tell the story and it would feel really nerve wracking. But then once I started doing it, I was like, oh, so I think like my favorite part was I did learn that I have a skill I didn't know that I had.
Do you plan to do it?
I would love to. Yeah. There was actually at the end of the year, into 2025, Penguin Random House had an internship that like you could apply for to be like mentored by some of their
that's cool.
Big,
very cool.
Yeah. And I loved the idea of it. So I did apply, but I did not get chosen for it. I think I need to, there's a couple of things. I do need to add a page on my website, but I need to kind of talk about it more is probably some of it. Cause it's like, if you're not working with an indie author, there's a really good chance that their publisher is sending them people that they already think of. So I haven't totally figured out how to let everyone know that I can do it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would do it again. It's a fun experience. And just like getting to produce something that gets published was like very cool.
That's awesome. So as we're approaching the second half of 2026, what goals do you have for Bookwild Collective as a whole, for like your podcast, for all the things that you do? You do so much.
Yes. So it's kind of silly to call it a goal, but it is a goal. I have to stick to not having double episodes. Like there have been some months, I'm sure it's like this when you guys get tons of events sometimes too. But sometimes I'm like, I do want to talk to this person just because like they pitched me and they seem cool. And then when it comes down to it and I have like 8 author episodes that come out in 1 month, I'm like, why did I do this to myself? Which actually goes back to some of why Tyler would say I go buck wild. But so some of it is like, this is a really strange reference, but it is amongst bookish people. I was reading Lena Dunham's Famesick, and there's a lot about it that I related to, love her or hate her. She really writes about the human experience in such a like raw way. But she was talking about how when she started, I am not Lena level fame, and just so everybody knows, but once her like cachet started picking up and she started to kind of have more fame, she started getting so stressed out about like, I'm not going to be someone where fame changes me. And like the way she wanted to combat that was like by saying yes to everyone, and like everyone that I've been with, like I'm going to bring them up with me. And it's such a great idea, but then you can burn yourself out so hardcore. And what I think I'm realizing is like, I have a bunch of authors who are repeat guests, but then like if you're meeting debut authors every year, then like the amount of authors you want to interview every year exceeds 52 weeks of the year. And I think, not in a bad way, and I've never felt resentful toward anyone at all. It's like my decisions that I make, but I'm having to come to the realization that I cannot interview every single person that pitches me or that I'm interested in. Like, it's just not totally possible. So some of my goals there are like, I have to set the boundary for myself and I have to respect my boundary, because like, it's okay. And if an author got so angry because I didn't have them on the podcast, I also need to like remember like that's probably not the kind of person I would be friends with anyway, if like that's what they're losing their mind about. So it's like all of that. I just got a couple of pitches where I was like, I really want to do these, but like I have so much in June and July. Yeah. So I need to do that. That's like one of the goals. My other goal is kind of what I talked about. I want to do more of the like trending content that is the stuff that helps you get noticed and get more followers. So that goal is like, I don't know exactly what the bounds of it will be to me, but like I'll probably start off telling myself I at least need to do one of those a week. And then if it's easier than I thought, then maybe it'll be I want to do 2 of those a week. So some of it's funny that you're asking these questions, because I was just having this conversation too last night where I was like, I think some of my brain, because I came to the world through podcasting, is like, that is the way that I can talk about books. And I'm like, there are so many bookstagrammers that, and I don't say just in a mean way, but just post about the book. And like, that still gets it in front of people. So I think there was like a part of my brain that was so like, this is how I started, so this is what I focus on. And it's like, no, I can also have this and do some other things. So I think those are the goals.
Yeah, those are great. Boundaries is always a great goal to have.
Yes.
But boundaries are really hard.
They are really hard.
It's really hard to set them, and it feels bad to tell people no.
It feels really bad to tell people. It just, especially if you think you're even interested in it.
Yeah.
That's like what I'm really starting to notice is I'm like, I'm not even trying to say yes because I feel guilty. I'm like, I do want to talk to them about that, but I just don't have the time. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So kind of moving on to like more about you as a person. So like beyond your brand, you share a lot about how much you love books and films. So I was wondering if you wanted to share some of your favorites of all times, books and films.
Okay. My favorite books of all time. I just read Ashley Winstead's new one that comes out in July for anyone who's listening, and Hot Girl Murder Club just became my favorite of hers. So that is definitely an all-time favorite for me now. I love all of her books, all of them. I've given 5 stars to literally all of them, but I would have said The Last Housewife was my true number 1 until I read Hot Girl Murder Club.
Okay.
Oh, I loved it. I loved that, like, it is a thriller in Hollywood, but it is not a popcorn thriller. It is dark, and it has lots of things that you have to pay attention to. And the other fun thing, I'll just say one more, is, like, the story is mostly about Scout, who is, like, a somewhat popular pop singer, kind of trying to get into acting. Her sister is murdered at a party, and now there are rumors circulating that she and her girl gang are essentially enacting revenge on other people who deserve it in Hollywood. So that's the gist of it. The book is basically about Scout, and you are never in her point of view. And that is something that I have discovered I find fascinating and really enjoy, because the book is talking about the court of public opinion, and at the same time as you're reading it, you're only a part of the court of public opinion. You are never with Scout. So it's so meta that, like, you're kind of having to critique other people for doing it when, like, also the only information you have is secondhand. So there are layers to why I really loved that one. So now that one is in my, like, I've had to start making my God tier shelf, because I can't help the fact that I still give so many books 5s, but some are 6s.
No, I 100% get that.
Like, some still deserve to be a 5, but it's like, then they're just those extra special ones. But speaking of court public opinion, Good People by Patmina Sabit would be another one that I just added to God tier. And it is about a girl named Zora who dies under maybe mysterious circumstances, maybe not. And you're just hearing, it's all transcripts, and it's the friends and family of her Afghan community. And then it's also like the white people within the community. And you never spend time with the actual Zoraf family. So you're only hearing everyone else's opinions, and like sometimes like the Afghan community is like they're letting her be too assimilated, and sometimes some of the white people in the community are like they're so restrictive with her. So you're like getting all these conflicting stories and just trying to figure out what maybe happened, and I just really love that structure lately. So that's another one that is way up there. We Used to Live Here. I still have not found the exact same high as that book. Like, I just haven't. I ordered House of Leaves here recently, actually after seeing Backrooms, because then House of Leaves was in everyone's like recommendations. But anyway, We Used to Live Here is like one of the most, it's some of the most fun I've ever had in a book, and it fits the part of books that I love where you need to be paying attention to everything.
Yes.
It makes me feel like I lock in, and it makes it more immersive, and it makes me like not think about scrolling, like all of that stuff. And you can't say much about the book because the thing that's magical and amazing about it, you want to find out on your own. But it's essentially these two, I can't remember if they're married, if they're married or just girlfriend and girlfriend. They are going to renovate this really old house, and then one night a family essentially shows up on the door and is like, we were just driving through and Dad used to live here, can we come in? And that's kind of all you need to know. And it's horror, so it's
that's one of my favorite horror books like ever. I love that book so much, and I kind of just like had stumbled upon it, and I didn't really know anything about it, and that is definitely like the way to go with that book. It is so good.
I loved it, and I was seeing House of Leaves comparisons when I read that one. Funny story, I got so obsessed with it. I have a 2-hour video on YouTube. Most of my YouTube videos are 50 to 100 views. And that one I made in November of 2024, and it's at 13,000. And it's just an explainer of that book.
That's amazing.
So yeah, like that was finding a fandom for sure. So I loved that one. Another one recently that I just added to my God tier is Into the Blue.
Love.
By Emma Brody. Book. It's just, it's so good. It's another one where you're like, it's a love story. It's not a romance. It spans like multiple decades of these two people's lives. But like the short gist is like, this girl is in high school and working at a movie store. I can't even remember their names now, and I feel bad. But this boy who has graduated kind of comes in for the summer to take care of his mom, who's having some health issues, and they grow really, really close. And he is like Hollywood. He's like a dynastic family, like heritage. So she kind of learns improv with him, but like that also means they like kind of learn how to like sync up with each other so well. They feel really close, and then he disappears. And it's like early 2000s. It's not when we had cell phones and you could be like, bro, where are you? He just disappears completely on her. And then 7 years-ish later, they end up on the same set together because they were both going after the same things. And that's all I will say, but it was one of the most emotional reads. It's like I don't read romance mostly, and I was like, oh my God, like I need to find what it's like. I think I found my subgenre of romance essentially. The character work was just beautiful. So I loved that a lot. Movies, Sinners stands out. I saw it first in like an AMC theater, and then when they did a second release on IMAX, I saw it by myself. And then when it came to the IMAX and Indy, I told Tyler, I was like, you have to see this movie and we're gonna go see it in IMAX. That book like really also, I had read The Reformatory shortly before then, so I had just learned that there were versions of horror that I really liked too, and now I am horror obsessed. So Sinners was a part of that. I loved that movie. They probably are going to go down as some of my favorites of all time, but since it's in the zeitgeist, Obsession and Backrooms and Hokum, a few less people saw that like triad of horror movies. I'm like, we've just been spoiled. So I really loved those. But another random one that comes to mind, whatever year this was, it might have been 2023. There was like a summer where it was just like I was seeing so many movies that I really loved. And I loved Challengers, which is like the tennis movie with Zendaya. It is so unique. It's hard to describe to people because you're like, yeah, it's a movie about these tennis players and their like interactions with each other. It's told out of order. So if that is something that you love in like books, it feels like you're reading. That's when we were like 30 minutes into the book, I like leaned over. I was like, this feels like reading a book. And Tyler's like, oh, okay.
Cool.
So I got obsessed with that one, and the score is amazing. But in that same year, one I don't hear tons of people talk about is called Strange Darling. And it is one of the best serial killer movies I have ever seen. And it is also told completely out of order. But the second that you think you know what is happening, you don't. And I think you almost start in like chapter 6, and then it's like chapter 2, and then it's like chapter 5. Like it's all, it goes. What blew my mind away about that book is I've read like Save the Cat that like helps you understand the plot beats of stories. What's really impressive is they tell it out of order, but they still hit the plot beats correctly with the reveals that telling it out of order do. So that one, like, forever and always. That's another one where I'm still kind of chasing the high of Strange Darling. I mean, and then there are tons of, I like TV shows. Westworld's one of my very, very, very favorite, and Severance. You can basically mind bending, whether it's spec fic or horror, are some of my faves most of the time.
So what usually like draws you into picking like a book or a film? Like you're like, I want to watch this or I want to read this. Because you said when you like kind of started your reading journey, you were reading primarily like thriller.
Yeah.
So how did you get out of that, like kind of like and branch out, I guess?
So a fun part of the answer is that it was audiobooks that helped me, because it's a little bit easier to like start listening to something that is like not what you're used to, but you're kind of like, okay, is this working for me? So that was, I think, the first time I read, well, like The Reformatory is historical horror, and I wasn't reading any historical fiction of any kind. Like I was you hear a lot of people who are like, no, never. But I was like, historical fiction, like that's not interesting to me. And a lot of that was coming from like, I love the pacing in thrillers most of the time. And I love how like there's something you're trying to figure out and that you're kind of like moving toward. And then I started to learn like that does exist even in other genres, like even in some historical fiction, or like especially if it's like dual timeline and it's like maybe this family, there's something happening at present but you don't know why they got there. So then like even if you wouldn't consider it a mystery, it's still having that kind of pull. So audiobooks kind of started to help me with that. They got me more into horror. And then actually after I listened to The Reformatory, I listened to The Vanishing Half by Britt Bennett, and that's all historical literary drama, and I loved it so much. And I was really getting my same friend Steph, who reads more genres. I was getting some recommendations from my friends who I now had who read other stuff, and they'd be like, I think you would probably like this because of this. So a decent amount of it is like friends or bookstagrammers. Like if they do post about something, I'm like, like actually what we're talking, A Fortune in Sand, Ruda's book. What's interesting to me too about that is it's like a female in the 1920s, I think. And like, she doesn't want to just do what she's like supposed to do as a female. And that works for me in any time period is what I've learned. So it's like, I'm learning like the themes that are interesting to me. And I think like identity is very interesting to me, books that like explore that. And even like, I mean, I'm a white girl, and I'm not heavily oppressed at all, but stories where people have to overcome something really big is like also like the system, like that kind of a thing, like really works for me. So that's like gotten me into more historical fiction. I will say with movies though, there are, I can't think of his name right now. You know how some people like you like know on TikTok, but you're like, what is their actual name? I have 2 or 3, like Stoobs is one of them. She talks about lots of movies and TV shows. But the other 2 guys, I'm sorry, I can't think of your names. But it's like TikTokers who will be like, you're not going to see it. I'm seeing it like not in the like mass media, like every now, like Strange Darling was one where I saw someone, I hadn't heard of it, I hadn't seen it like in the press, and it was like someone on TikTok saying this movie's amazing, you need to go see it. I like looked it up and I'm like, oh, our theater has it for like a week. So with movies, it actually is more like some TikTokers I follow who are like, I've had one director on the podcast, and it was the director of Oddity. His name is Damien McCarthy, and he directed Hokum, which came out last month with Adam Scott. I was really hoping I could get him on again, but I don't think he saw my email, and that's totally okay. But I hadn't heard anything about that movie, and it was the same thing. Someone was like, this is some of the best like psychological horror I've seen in a while. So like I hadn't even heard of it, saw it there, like looked it up. They didn't even have it at like the AMC closest to me, so like I drove like 30 minutes instead of 15. And I was like, I've got to see this sounds like it's up my alley. And then I DM'd the director after it. He's the writer director, and he was like, yeah, I'll do an episode. So like I wouldn't have even seen that movie or gotten to interview a writer director if it weren't for some TikTokers.
Yeah, I love following along with you on social media because you post when you go to the movies.
I do.
My husband and I, we love going to the movies, and I'm like, well, what's
going on?
Like, what do I need to go see?
I became such a junkie, and if you have an AMC near you, it's worth noting you can see up to 4 movies a week for $23 a month. So if you go to 2 movies a month, you've made up for it.
We've been debating the membership for a while because we go a lot. I'm there all the time.
Me too.
I love the movies.
Yeah.
So beyond books and like movies and shows, do you have any other hobbies or interests that you enjoy, or are those like your primary, like what you go to?
That's a really good question. Because I am a hyperfixator, and sometimes what happens is like I got hyperfixated on like education, but then that just turned into me reading books about education. What do? I do like, I enjoy working out. I kind of agreed with you though when you were saying like, is it a hobby? Like, and maybe it is because I do enjoy it. And I haven't been able to for 5 weeks because of an injury, and that is what keeps me like not angry and snappy.
Yeah.
It is a mental health thing. So like the longer it goes on, I'm like, I really need this to heal right now. So I really enjoy working out, but I mean, yeah, mostly my hobbies are reading and watching stuff and making content. I don't think I really have, my husband really wants me to like get an electric bike to like, cause he has a longboard. And he has a 1-wheel now. But I'm like, I don't do well outside though. So I guess that's the other part. I'm pretty introverted. Well, no, that's still bookish. I would say my hobby's coming to your events, but that's bookish too.
Hey, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
So with like your primary hobbies and interests like also being like kind of like part of your work, how are you able to like separate the two and still enjoy those things outside of like a work capacity?
Yes. I will say most of the time it still is feeling like the hobby part because of how much I edit that is not even bookish related. Like probably 6 to 8 hours of my day is like editing interior designers, and more power to them. It's just not thrilling necessarily work. So it kind of still feels like the hobby. However, what I definitely could include is, and it just left my brain a little bit. Oh, I'm a mood reader. So sometimes that is what I will run into that will make it feel like work, where it's like, oh, I agreed to this book like 3 months ago, and I really thought I was going to want to read it, and this random circumstance that's happening is happening, and now I'm not in the mood. So that's the thing that will come up sometimes. And sometimes then I'm like, sometimes the way I tend to handle it is like reminding myself, actually, there's a quote I really love that says, how lucky am I to be exhausted by things I was only dreaming about previously. And I think that sentiment is what I come back to when I'm like, I'm not in the mood for a historical fiction right now, but I'm interviewing the author in 7 days, so I do need to start it. I try to go back to gratitude, as cliche as it sounds. But the other thing that's kind of nice is if it is an audiobook, you know, it's like when I'm trapped in the car, like, nope, you're just going to listen, or like I do it like while I'm doing chores. But also, to your question, it is some of what I'm realizing is how many yeses I say. Mm-hmm. So some of how I deal with it is that I need to not say yes all the time.
And that makes sense.
Yeah.
And fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a pretty good stopping point. Where can the people find you online?
Yes. Mm-hmm. I am, at I'm Bookwild on Instagram and TikTok. And then also bookwildcollective.com has like, especially any of the like author stuff that you're interested in, but it also has the links to all of the podcasts that we discuss, like like on all the platforms too.
Perfect. Well, we are so excited that you were able to join us today.
Me too.
And we will see you all next time.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.